This is Twit.
The U.S. government has long accused Chinese telecommunications giant Huawei of selling equipment compromised by code that enabled spying and hacking. Well, a new report in the German magazine Der Spiegel says that it's true, but it's not the Chinese government doing the spying and hacking, it's the NSA. With us to talk about this story is one of the investigative reporters who broke the story, Holger Stark, senior correspondent for Der Spiegel. Welcome.
Good morning, Mike.
Now, can you tell us more about the NSA hacking of Huawei? Why did they target the company, and how did they do it?
Well, they almost started with an operation they called Shot Giant like a decade ago in the mid of the 2000s, and they saw Huawei as a potential intelligent threat to the United States. They were afraid that Huawei, which is today the second most important network infrastructure company worldwide, has been something like a joint venture with the Chinese intelligence agencies. So they first said, we need to investigate if this proves to be true. And they broke into Huawei's network in almost 100 places. They entered the network at the company's headquarters in Shenzhen. They got access to the mail of the CEO, Reng Zhengfei. They acquired the customers list and even the source codes of Huawei.
Now, so what you're saying is that they suspected that the company was being used for hacking. They went in to find out. They hacked the company to find out if that was going on. And then once inside the company, they realized that they could essentially do what they were accusing the Chinese of doing and go in and hack the company. Now, Huawei has all kinds of interesting customers to the U.S. intelligence organization, including Iran, Cuba, and others. Was that part of the incentive, do you think, according to these documents, why they wanted to go in there and really just kind of use Huawei's equipment and services to hack companies?
That was definitely one of the goals. It is mentioned in a document from 2010, an internal secret document from the NSA, that they could use knowledge about Huawei's technology to acquire or to conduct new operations against countries like you mentioned, Iran and others. But on the other hand, you can clearly see that the White House, which has been involved, and others just wanted to learn more about the threat. They said Huawei poses a unique threat to the United States because it's an unusual mixture of a military structure, of a private company, of a new innovative company. And they said that we need to learn more about that, also for competition for the future. And that's something which is far away from doing counterterrorism or counter-espionage activities. That's basically close to industrial espionage.
But you didn't find any actual evidence of industrial espionage, did you? I mean, they accessed the source code and so on, so it seems like they were in a good position to commit industrial espionage, but was there any indication that there was a desire or an attempt to do this?
There is no indication that the NSA provided any of those information to American companies like Cisco, Apple, Microsoft, or others. But I think after 10 years, you clearly should know if a company is affiliated with the Chinese intelligence agencies or with the Chinese military, or if it's just doing its business like every other ordinary company on the world. And according to the documents, at least up to 2010, we didn't see any indication that there is an affiliation with the official Chinese government, the intel agencies, or the military.
Now, one of the astonishing facts in all this is that before the Snowden revelations hit, immediately before, days before they hit, President Obama was scheduled to meet with the Chinese president essentially to lecture him about Chinese hacking of American companies and American targets. And this really turned the tables in a very big way. Of course, the Chinese government is demanding answers from the U.S. government. But you mentioned in your report that the White House and the FBI were especially involved. Was this unusual for them to be involved in the way that these documents indicate that they were?
Well, this is clearly an operation which hasn't been conducted only in Fort Meade at the NSA's headquarters. This is definitely something that has been done altogether by the American authorities and with knowledge of the White House. So the whole American government saw this threat posed by Huawei as a very, very urgent one. I think it shows, in a way, the hypocrisy of the American government, because they for a long time accused the Chinese to hack against American companies, and now it turns out that it's also the other way around, that also a Chinese company is is a target for American intelligence agencies, it will make it much harder to argue for Obama and every other American official towards the Chinese and to stop them doing their espionage.
Yeah, it seems to me that one perspective on this particular story, I mean, it comes to us as yet another grinding revelation in the Snowden documents, just yet another of its kind, but this is actually different in a way. In a way, this is the kind of hacking, this is the kind of espionage that the NSA is supposed to be doing. They have a rival superpower, if you will. They're looking into what they're doing. They're seeing if they have any opportunities to spy on other rivals, regional powers like Iran and others, using this the means of hacking Huawei. So that sounds on its face like, you know, regular espionage, the kind that we expect the NSA to be doing. But it's this hypocrisy that you mentioned that is particularly grueling. I mean, the U.S. has been banning Huawei products, essentially issuing reports in Congress saying that Huawei is probably compromised by the Chinese government and the People's Liberation Army, and that this is why they put various bans and blocks on the purchase of this equipment. And it's really, you know, spectacularly ironic and hypocritical that it turns out that, in fact, the equipment was compromised even worse than they had accused, but in fact the compromisers were the United States itself. So that's really, to me, that's really the case. But is that a legitimate viewpoint? Is this legit? If you set aside the hypocrisy, is this an example, do you think, of legitimate espionage?
Well, I would see legitimate espionage in operations when intelligence agencies conduct operations against other intelligence agencies. So if the NSA would target the Chinese military, the Chinese intelligence services, it's also clear that operations against the leadership of a foreign country like China is in a way legitimate espionage. I think in this specific case, when it comes to Huawei, this is far beyond of the self-declared standards that the American government renewed. I mean, President Obama just said in January in his speech that he really will focus on legitimate operations. He mentioned counterterrorism. He mentioned counter-proliferation and other things. It's this mantra of national security, which they used this time to justify this operation. I personally I'm really skeptical, and I think it has much to do with an approach that not only the NSA but also the American government declared like almost 20 years ago. General Kenneth Minihan, the at that time director of the NSA, said already in 1969, it's all about one goal. It's about American information superiority in the internet, and that says a lot. And they see Huawei clearly as a threat to that information superiority.
Yeah, and we actually have a story later on in the show that demonstrates that with its U.S. rival Cisco and how they're struggling and what they're doing to deal with the rising influence and power of Huawei as a rival company. Now, I saw only the preview that was posted in English, and there's a much longer piece coming out, and the preview mentioned other companies besides Huawei. We focus in on Huawei because they're a major technology company, but of course there are many other targets. Were any of those other targets, the other companies that were mentioned in the report, major Chinese companies that we may have heard of?
There are some major telecommunication companies around, but I don't want to disclose the names of them. This is a tightrope walk, and we want to be on the safe side because this also concerns legitimate intelligence operations. So please let me be decent on this way and only say it's a couple of major Chinese telecommunications companies.
Okay, well, I want to thank you for coming on Tech News today and telling us about this story, and also congratulate you on the exclusive here. It was a devastatingly good story, and again, I thank you.
Thanks so much for having me.
You can find Holger and his work on spiegel.de and also on Twitter at Holger Stark. That's Holger_Stark, S-T-A-R-K.